Jessica Martinez stared at the 8 crumpled bills in her trembling hand as rain started to fall. Her final $8. Tomorrow's groceries for her son Tommy. Across the dimly lit parking lot, she watched a leather-clad biker stumble and collapse against his Harley. His massive frame hit the concrete hard. She could hear his labored breathing even from 20 feet away. "Walk away!" a voice inside screamed. The attendant smoking by the door called out, "Lady, those Hell's Angels mean trouble. Stay clear." But Jessica's feet moved forward anyway. $8. One dying stranger. One impossible choice that would shatter everything she knew about survival. The alarm clock's shrill beep dragged Jessica from sleep at 4:45 a.m. Another day. Another battle. She forced her exhausted body upright in the cramped studio apartment she called home with 6-year-old Tommy. Peeling wallpaper, a leaking faucet she couldn't afford to fix, but 4 walls that kept them safe. In the kitchen, she inventoried their supplies with practiced efficiency. Half a box of generic cereal, enough milk for 1 bowl. She measured it carefully into Tommy's favorite blue bowl, the one with the chip on the rim. Her son shuffled in moments later, dark circles under his young eyes mirroring her own. "Hey, champ. Ready for school?" Tommy nodded sleepily and climbed into his chair. Jessica watched him eat, her own stomach growling. She'd gotten used to skipping breakfast. Lunch, too, most days. It was easier when Tommy wasn't watching. Her life had become a mathematical equation of survival. 2 minimum-wage jobs barely covered rent. The laundromat paid $11.25 an hour for folding endless mountains of other people's clothes. The evening shift at Rosie's Diner brought tips that ranged from generous to insulting, averaging maybe $15 on a good night. 3 weeks ago, her Honda died on the highway. The mechanic quoted $400 for repairs. She had $63 in her account. So now she walked 4 miles to the laundromat, 3 miles to the diner, 2 miles home. Her sneakers had holes worn through both soles. The numbers haunted her constantly. Rent due Friday. She was $150 short. Tommy's asthma inhaler was down to 3 puffs. The refill cost $60 without insurance. The electric company had sent 2 warning notices. 1 more, and they'd shut off the power. But Jessica had learned something from her grandmother who'd raised her after her parents died. Your circumstances don't define your character, mija. How you treat people when you've got nothing left, that's who you really are. So, Jessica smiled at rude customers. She helped elderly coworkers lift heavy loads. She wrote in her gratitude journal even on days when finding 3 good things felt impossible. Tuesday began with the usual routine. She walked Tommy to Mrs. Chen's apartment downstairs. The elderly woman watched him before school for $20 a week, a rate so low Jessica knew it was charity disguised as business. Then the long walk to Palmer Street laundromat. 8 hours disappeared into rhythmic folding. Shirts, pants, towels, sheets. Her hands moved automatically while her mind calculated and recalculated her finances, searching for solutions that didn't exist. At 1:30, she clocked out and headed toward Rosie's Diner. She arrived early, as always, claiming her usual corner booth. Margaret, a grandmother who'd been serving coffee for longer than Jessica had been alive, brought her a cup without asking. "You're running yourself into the ground, sweetie." Margaret's eyes held concern, not judgment. "That boy needs his mama healthy." Jessica managed a tired smile. "He needs a roof over his head more." Margaret squeezed her shoulder but said nothing else. They both understood that some problems couldn't be solved with kind words. The dinner shift brought the usual chaos. Truckers stopping for fuel and food, families with screaming toddlers, teenagers leaving pocket change as tips. Jessica moved through it all with mechanical efficiency, refilling coffee, taking orders, clearing tables. By 10 p.m., she counted her tips in the back room. $19 in crumpled bills and loose change. Combined with the $8.47 left from yesterday, she had $27.47 total. She needed $2 for the bus tomorrow. That left $25.47. $23 went toward Friday's rent shortfall. $2.47 remaining. She stared at the small pile of bills and coins. Enough for Tommy's breakfast. Maybe a banana and some crackers for dinner tomorrow. She folded the money carefully, tucking it deep in her jacket pocket, and began the long walk home. The route took her past Sullivan's gas station, a 24-hour place with bathrooms that were usually unlocked. She needed to stop. Her feet were killing her, and she'd been holding it for the last hour of her shift. That's when everything changed forever. Jessica emerged from the restroom into the parking lot. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the empty pavement. A few cars, one 18-wheeler idling in the corner, and motorcycles. 3 of them parked under the lights, chrome gleaming. She'd planned to keep her head down and keep walking. Then she heard it. A sound that made her blood freeze. Someone choking, gasping for air. One of the bikers, a mountain of a man with gray-streaked beard and arms covered in ink, had one hand pressed to his chest. His face had gone pale. He staggered, tried to catch himself on his motorcycle. Missed. His knees buckled, and he went down hard on the concrete. Jessica stopped walking. The man was on his back now, his breathing coming in short, desperate wheezes. His lips were turning blue. She recognized the signs. Her grandmother had died of a heart attack. She'd been 14, helpless, watching it happen. "Help!" Jessica shouted toward the gas station. "Someone call 911. The attendant, a thin white guy probably in his 30s, stepped outside with a cigarette dangling from his lips. He glanced at the fallen biker, then at Jessica. "Lady, you want my advice? Keep walking. That's a Hell's Angel. Nothing but trouble." "He's having a heart attack," Jessica said, her voice rising with urgency. The attendant shrugged and took another drag. "Probably overdosed on something. Not our problem. Trust me, you don't want to get involved with those people." A pickup truck pulled up to the pumps. The driver, an older man in a cowboy hat, got out and surveyed the scene. He walked over to Jessica, his expression grave. "Miss, I know you want to help, but those motorcycle clubs are dangerous. You've got a kid at home, don't you? I can tell. Just walk away. This ain't your fight." Jessica pulled her arm back when he tried to guide her away. "A man is dying." The cowboy shook his head sadly, climbed back in his truck, and drove off without another glance. Jessica stood alone in that parking lot. The attendant had gone back inside. The only sound was the dying man's labored breathing, getting weaker with each passing second. She thought about her grandmother. How she'd collapsed on a busy sidewalk downtown. How dozens of people had walked past her. How by the time someone finally called for help, it was too late. Jessica had been powerless then. She wasn't powerless now. She dropped to her knees beside the biker. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open slightly. He tried to speak but only managed a weak rasp. "Heart. Pills. Forgot them." Jessica yanked her phone from her pocket. 1 bar of signal. Battery at 8%. She dialed 911. The call connected, then immediately dropped. Damn it. She ran back to the gas station and burst through the door. "Call an ambulance right now. That man is dying." The attendant rolled his eyes dramatically but picked up the phone. Jessica didn't wait to hear the conversation. She scanned the shelves frantically, grabbed a bottle of aspirin and bottled water, and ran to the counter. "How much?" $6.50. She pulled the $8 from her pocket. Tommy's breakfast money. The attendant made change with agonizing slowness. $1.50 back. Jessica left the coins on the counter and ran. The biker's chest had stopped moving. Jessica twisted the aspirin bottle cap off, shook 2 tablets into her palm, and knelt beside him. "Hey, look at me. I need you to chew these. Please." His eyes opened barely. She placed the tablets on his tongue. "Chew them. Come on. You can do this." He chewed weakly, his face contorted in pain. She opened the water bottle and held it to his cracked lips. "Small sip. That's it. Help is coming. You're going to make it. Just stay with me." His hand reached up and grabbed hers with surprising strength. "What's your name?" he whispered. "Jessica. Jessica Martinez." "Thank you, Jessica Martinez. You're saving my life." "Not yet, but I'm trying." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Another motorcycle roared into the parking lot. A younger biker, maybe early 30s, jumped off before his bike had fully stopped. "Bronson, oh God, Bronson." He fell to his knees on the other side of the collapsed man. He looked at Jessica with shock and confusion written across his face. "You helped him?" "He needed help," Jessica said simply. "Most people cross the street when they see our patches," the younger biker said quietly. "I saw a person," Jessica replied. "That's all." The ambulance screamed into the lot. Paramedics rushed over with equipment and a stretcher. One of them looked at Jessica. "Did you give him aspirin?" "Yes. 2 tablets, maybe 4 minutes ago." The paramedic nodded approvingly. Smart thinking. You probably just saved his life. They loaded Bronson onto the stretcher. He reached out and caught Jessica's wrist, his grip weak but insistent. Tell them Bronson sent you. She had no idea what that meant. The younger biker stood as the ambulance doors closed. He walked over and pulled a card from his leather vest. My name's Kane. Bronson's going to want to thank you properly. Please call this number tomorrow. The card was plain white with just a phone number and a small logo. A skull with wings. Who is he? Jessica asked. Kane smiled sadly. Someone important. Someone who doesn't forget kindness. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing. Jessica stood in the empty parking lot with $1.50 in her pocket and no idea what she'd just set in motion. She walked home in the dark, replaying everything. The attendant's warning echoed in her mind. Nothing but trouble. But all she'd seen was a dying man who needed help. The walk home took 45 minutes. Her feet screamed with every step. When she finally climbed the stairs to her apartment, it was nearly midnight. Mrs. Chen was asleep on the couch, with Tommy curled beside her. Thank you so much, Mrs. Chen. Jessica gently woke the older woman. Mrs. Chen patted her hand. That boy is an angel. No trouble at all. After Mrs. Chen left, Jessica carefully lifted Tommy and carried him to his bed. He stirred slightly. Mommy. Shh. Sleep, baby. Love you, Mommy. Love you too, champ. Jessica sat at the kitchen table and stared at the business card. The skull with wings logo seemed to stare back at her. She had $1.50 to her name. Tommy would ask for breakfast in 6 hours. She'd have to tell him they were having water and whatever she could scrounge from the back of the cabinets. She pulled out her gratitude journal. 3 things, like always. 1. Tommy is healthy. 2. I helped someone tonight. 3. Tomorrow is a new day. She placed the card on her nightstand, lay down fully clothed, and closed her eyes. She had no idea that across town in a hospital room, Bronson was telling Kane to gather everyone. She had no idea her name was being spoken in rooms she'd never seen. She had no idea her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. All she knew was she'd done the right thing. And sometimes that's all you can do, even when it costs you everything. Jessica's alarm jolted her awake at 4:45 a.m. Her body ached. She shuffled to the kitchen and opened the cabinet. 1 banana turning brown. A handful of stale crackers. That was everything. She split the banana, arranged the crackers on a plate, and poured water into Tommy's favorite cup. Tommy emerged, rubbing sleep from his eyes. What's for breakfast, Mom? A special breakfast today, buddy. Jessica forced brightness into her voice. Banana and crackers. Your favorite. Tommy didn't complain. He never did. He climbed into his chair and ate slowly. Jessica didn't eat anything. She sat across from him, watching, trying not to think about the $8. Then came a knock at the door. Jessica frowned. It was barely 6:30 a.m. She opened it to find Mrs. Peterson from across the hall. Her neighbor, a black woman in her 60s who'd lived in this building for decades. Her face was tight with concern. Jessica, honey, we need to talk. Is everything okay, Mrs. Patterson? Jessica stepped into the hallway. I heard you helped one of those Hells Angels bikers last night. How did you hear about that? Jessica asked, her stomach dropping. Word travels fast in this neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson crossed her arms. Those men are dangerous, Jessica. Criminals, drugs, violence. You have Tommy to think about. He was dying, Mrs. Patterson. I had to help. That man was a human being. Mrs. Patterson shook her head slowly. You're too kind for your own good, child. That kindness is going to bring trouble to your door. You mark my words. She turned and walked back to her apartment, leaving Jessica standing in the hallway with dread pooling in her stomach. At the laundromat, Jessica folded clothes mechanically. Her mind kept returning to Mrs. Patterson's warning. Margaret noticed her distraction. What's eating at you, sweetie? Jessica told her everything. The gas station, the biker, using her last $8. Margaret's eyes widened. You helped a Hell's Angel. Girl, you're either very brave or very foolish. According to my neighbor, very foolish, Jessica muttered. Margaret squeezed her hand. You did what your heart told you. That's never wrong. But what if she's right? What if I just invited trouble into my life? During her break, Jessica pulled out the business card. She stared at it for 10 minutes before finally typing a text message. Hi, this is Jessica Martinez. Kane gave me this number. She hit send before she could change her mind. Her phone rang immediately. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail, her hands shaking. A minute later, she listened to the message. Jessica, it's Kane. Bronson wants to meet you today. Can you come to Murphy's Diner on 5th Street at 3 p.m.? It's important. Please come. Jessica's heart pounded. Margaret leaned over. What did they say? They want to meet me this afternoon. Then go, Margaret said firmly. What's the worst that could happen? Jessica tried to smile, but her stomach was in knots. She finished her shift at 2 p.m. She could make it to the diner by 3. But Mrs. Patterson's words haunted her. Trouble to your door. As she left the laundromat, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. 2 motorcycles parked across the street. 2 men in leather vests watching her. When she looked directly at them, they nodded respectfully. Then they rode off. Jessica stood frozen on the sidewalk. What had she walked into? And more importantly, could she walk back out? Jessica took the bus to 5th Street, using her last $2. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. As the bus turned the corner, she saw them. Motorcycles everywhere. Dozens lined up in perfect rows outside Murphy's Diner, chrome and leather gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her stomach dropped. The bus stopped, and Jessica almost stayed seated. But something made her stand and walk toward that diner. Bikers lined the sidewalk. Big men with tattoos covering their arms. Women, too, standing with arms crossed, faces serious, all wearing vests with the same patches. As Jessica walked past, each one nodded to her respectfully. An older man with a white beard tipped an imaginary hat. Jessica's heart hammered. She reached the door, took a breath, and walked inside. Every booth was filled with bikers. The entire diner went silent. Every person turned to look at her. Kane appeared from the back. Jessica, thank you for coming. Bronson's been waiting. As they walked through the diner, something incredible happened. The bikers stood up, one by one, row by row. As she passed, they rose to their feet like a wave. Jessica had no idea what it meant, but it felt sacred, reverent. Kane led her to a corner booth. Bronson sat there, looking much better than last night but still pale. When he saw her, he slowly stood, wincing slightly. Jessica Martinez, please, sit down. She slid into the booth across from him. How are you feeling? Jessica asked. Alive, thanks to you. The doctor said, if you hadn't acted when you did, I wouldn't have made it. Jessica shifted uncomfortably. I just did what anyone would do. Bronson leaned forward, his eyes intense. No, most people wouldn't have. Especially not for someone who looks like me. Kane told me everything. You used your last $8. You have a son. 2 jobs. You're barely surviving. And you spent your last money to save a stranger. It wasn't about the money, Jessica said quietly. I know, Bronson said. That's exactly why I wanted to meet you. He pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. A younger Bronson stood beside a woman. Between them was a little girl with bright eyes and a huge smile. That's my daughter. Her name was Emma. Was, Jessica repeated softly. Leukemia. She was 8 years old. We couldn't afford the treatments fast enough. By the time we got the money together, it was too late. Jessica's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. Bronson's voice was rough with emotion. After Emma died, I made a promise. Anyone who shows real kindness, especially when they have nothing themselves, I help them. It's what Emma would have wanted. It's how I honor her memory. Jessica didn't know what to say. Bronson looked her directly in the eye. Tomorrow morning, something's going to happen at your apartment. Don't be scared. Just trust me. What do you mean? Jessica asked. Bronson smiled. You'll see. He stood, placed money on the table, and walked out with Kane. Jessica sat alone, surrounded by silent bikers, completely confused. An older woman biker leaned over from the next booth. You did something special, honey. Real special. Jessica had no idea what she meant. She took the bus home with her mind spinning. Back on Jessica's street, the neighborhood was buzzing with gossip. Mrs. Patterson stood on her porch talking to Mr. Washington, a man in his 40s from 2 doors down. That girl Jessica is mixed up with those bikers now. I told her no good would come of it. Mr. Washington frowned. Hell's Angels on our street? We need to do something before someone gets hurt. A young mother overheard. I'm keeping my kids inside tomorrow. The word spread like wildfire. By evening, the whole block was on edge. Parents warned their children. Curtains stayed drawn. Doors stayed locked. And Jessica rode the bus home with dread in her stomach, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Tomorrow would give her the answer. Jessica woke to a sound like rolling thunder. Deep, rumbling, shaking the windows. She rushed to look outside and her breath caught. Motorcycles lined her entire street. Hundreds of them, chrome gleaming in the morning sun. Bikers in black vests standing in perfect formation like an army. "Oh my God," Jessica whispered. Tommy ran in wearing his pajamas. "Mommy, why are there so many motorcycles?" Jessica had no answer. She threw on clothes and rushed outside with Tommy's hand gripped tight in hers. The entire neighborhood had emerged, but they weren't curious. They were terrified. Windows slammed shut, doors locked. Parents yanked children inside. Mrs. Patterson stood on her porch with her phone. "Yes, police. There's a gang invasion on Maple Street. Please send help." Mr. Washington ran toward Jessica, his face red with fury. "Jessica, what the hell did you do? Why are they here? You brought a gang to our street where our children live." Other neighbors gathered, voices rising in anger. "What were you thinking?" "I told you," Mrs. Patterson shouted. "I warned you this would happen." The crowd pressed closer. Jessica held Tommy tight, her hands shaking. "I don't know why they're here." "Mommy, I'm scared," Tommy whimpered. "It's okay, baby," Jessica said, but her voice was shaking too. Kane stepped forward, hands raised. "Folks, please. We're not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here?" Mr. Washington demanded. "We're here to help one of your own. Jessica saved a life 2 nights ago. Now we're here to thank her properly." The crowd went silent. A trailer truck pulled up. Bikers started unloading boxes. Kane turned to the confused neighbors. "My name is Kane. I volunteer with Emma's Light, a non-profit organization that helps struggling families." "Non-profit," someone muttered skeptically. "Bronson, the man Jessica saved, is our founder. He started Emma's Light after his daughter died of leukemia. We've helped over 3,000 families in 20 years. We raise money, build homes, pay medical bills. We're not a gang, we're volunteers." Mr. Washington's expression changed. "Wait, Emma's Light? You helped my brother in Chicago, David Washington, veteran with PTSD. You paid for his therapy for 2 years. Kane nodded. "We did," a woman in the crowd gasped. "You paid for my mother's cancer treatment 3 years ago. She's alive because of you." Another voice. "You saved my nephew's house from foreclosure." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Fear transformed into confusion, then understanding. Mrs. Patterson's hand covered her mouth. "Lord have mercy. We judged you all wrong." Bronson climbed out of the truck, moving carefully. The crowd parted as he walked toward Jessica. He turned to face the neighbors. "I understand why you were scared. You saw the leather, the motorcycles, the tattoos. You thought the worst. That's human nature," he pointed to Jessica. "But this woman didn't see any of that. She saw a man dying. She used her last $8, her son's breakfast money, to save my life. She didn't know who I was. She didn't care. She just saw a human being who needed help." Complete silence. "She didn't see a stereotype," Bronson continued. "She saw a person. That's the kind of world I'm trying to build, where people see each other as human beings first." Mr. Washington stepped forward, his eyes wet. "I judged you by your jacket, not your heart. I was wrong. I apologize." He extended his hand. Bronson shook it firmly. "We all make mistakes, sir. What matters is learning from them." One by one, neighbors approached, apologizing, shaking hands, some crying. Mr. Washington walked to Jessica. "I'm sorry I yelled at you. You were braver than all of us put together." Bronson turned back to Jessica. "You gave me a second chance at life. Now, let me give you one too." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $25,000. Jessica stared at it, unable to process the numbers. "For rent, medical bills, whatever you need," Bronson said gently. But there was more. A letter on official letterhead. "Emma's Light offers you the position of Community Outreach Coordinator. Salary $52,000 per year. Full benefits including health insurance. Start date in 2 weeks." Jessica's legs gave out. She sank to the ground, sobbing. Tommy knelt beside her, confused. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Happy tears, baby. Such happy tears." The neighbors erupted in applause. Engines revved in celebration. the sound echoing down the street. Mrs. Patterson pulled Jessica into a tight hug. "Baby girl, you showed us all how to be better people. I'm so sorry I doubted you." Bronson knelt beside Jessica, wincing from the effort. "One more thing." He handed her a car key. "We got your Honda out of impound. Fully repaired. Better than new. It's parked around the corner." Jessica looked up at him through tears. "Why? Why all of this?" Bronson's eyes glistened. 20 years ago, my daughter died because we didn't have enough money for treatment. I swore I'd never let that happen to another family. You saved my life with your last dollars. You didn't hesitate. You didn't ask for anything in return. That's the kind of person the world needs. That's the kind of person I need on my team." "I'm nobody special," Jessica whispered. "You're wrong," Bronson said firmly. "You're exactly who we've been looking for. Someone who understands what it means to have nothing and still chooses kindness." Kane stepped forward. "There's more. Come look." He led her to the trailer. Inside was furniture, groceries, toys, clothes, school supplies. Everything Tommy could need. Jessica laughed through her tears, overwhelmed by the generosity. "This is too much," she managed to say. "It's not enough," Bronson replied. "But it's a start." The bikers began unloading. And the neighbors who'd been terrified an hour ago stepped forward to help. Mr. Washington grabbed a box. "Where do you want this?" Mrs. Patterson directed traffic. "Careful with that bed frame." The young mother who'd locked her kids inside now had them carrying toys for Tommy. The entire street came together. Fear and judgment transformed into community and love. Bronson stood beside Jessica as she watched the scene unfold. "Tomorrow we start planning the community center. Right here on this street." "Community center?" Jessica repeated, still in shock. "Martinez house. Named after you and Tommy." Jessica shook her head, crying again. "You can't do that." "I can," Bronson said. "And I am. You changed my life. Now I'm changing yours." Tommy tugged his mother's hand. "Mommy, they brought me a bike. They brought me a real bike." Jessica looked at her son's face. Pure joy. No fear. No worry. Just happiness. "Thank you," Jessica whispered to Bronson. "You already thanked me," he replied. 2 nights ago in that parking lot. You saw me. Not the vest. Not the tattoos. Just me. That's all I needed." By noon, Jessica's apartment was transformed. New furniture. A full refrigerator. Tommy's room looked like something from a magazine. Jessica sat on her new couch, still in disbelief. Bronson sat beside her. "Let me explain the job. What you'll be doing." "I'll do anything," Jessica said. "I just want to help people like you helped me." Bronson smiled. "We get hundreds of requests every month. Single parents, veterans, families drowning in medical debt. I need someone who understands that struggle from the inside. Someone who can look people in the eye and truly see them." "That's me," Jessica said. "I know," Bronson replied. "That's why you're perfect for this." He showed her blueprints for the community center. Job training programs, food bank, after-school care for kids like Tommy, medical clinic offering free services. "Here," Jessica breathed. "In this neighborhood." "Why not?" Bronson said. "This is where people need it most. And we're calling it Martinez House." Jessica's tears started again. "You can't name it after me?" "I didn't do anything special. You saved my life with your last $8, Bronson said quietly. "That's the definition of special. Your job starts in 2 weeks. That gives you time to quit your other jobs and settle in." He handed her a benefits packet. "Health insurance starts immediately. Covers everything, including Tommy's asthma medication." "Completely?" Jessica asked, her voice breaking. "Completely. No copays, no deductibles. You'll never have to choose between his inhaler and food again." Jessica sobbed into her hands. Bronson waited patiently until she could breathe. "There's one more thing." He handed her a vest. Not a Hell's Angels vest, but a volunteer vest for Emma's Light. The skull with wings embroidered on the back. "Your family now," Bronson said simply. Jessica put on the vest and looked in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. "Your first assignment," Bronson continued. "Find someone in this neighborhood who needs help. Use those same instincts that saved me. Then we'll help them together." Jessica thought for only a moment. "Mr. Garcia. 3 doors down. He's 75. I've seen him choosing between food and his diabetes medication." Bronson smiled. Then, let's go meet Mr. Garcia. They walked to Mr. Garcia's apartment together. Jessica, Bronson, and Kane. The elderly man answered the door, surprised to see people on his doorstep. Mr. Garcia, I'd like you to meet some friends, Jessica said gently. We're here to help. They sat in his small living room. Bronson explained Emma's light while Mr. Garcia listened with tears forming. Sir, what do you need most right now? Bronson asked. My diabetes medication, mister, Garcia said, his voice shaking. I can't afford it anymore. I've been cutting my doses in half. Bronson pulled out his phone. We'll have your prescription filled and delivered today. 3-month supply. No cost to you. Mr. Garcia grabbed Jessica's hand. You did this for me? We did this, Jessica said. Together. As they left, Jessica looked back at Mr. Garcia's grateful face. This is the best job I'll ever have. I know, Bronson said, because you understand what it means to need help. And now you get to be the person who shows up. 6 months later, everything had changed. Martinez house stood completed on Maple Street. A beautiful building with programs serving hundreds of families. Jessica led a team of 5 coordinators, each one someone she'd helped first. Emma's light expanded to neighboring towns. The video of that morning went viral. Millions watched. Comments poured in. Families Emma's light had helped shared their stories. The negativity turned to praise. Jessica sat at her desk one afternoon when a young woman walked in. Nervous. Scared. My name is Lisa. I need help. My daughter needs surgery we can't afford. Jessica smiled warmly. Tell me everything. And the cycle continued. Kindness creating more kindness. One person at a time. One $8 decision that changed everything. Did this story touch your heart? We want to hear from you in the comments below. Tell us what you think about these incredible bikers who protect the innocent. Your comments help us grow this channel and share more stories that matter. Please take a moment to leave a comment right now. Thank you for watching.